Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Thanks for joining me this Sunday morning. Actually, obviously, you guys know I'm filming this in New York. It is so cold in New York today. I'm talking like 3 degrees, wind chill, -10. It's like unreal. It's been like crazy cold in New York. So if you're in the Northeast, you know how I feel. Okay, so let's talk. We're going to go over in this live stream, we're going to go over like a beginner program to get you started with intermittent fasting. I know if you've been following me for a while, you can be showing up on these live streams. Some of this might be like a repeat for you, but I'm going to kind of gear this live stream a little bit more for beginners who want to get started, like start the new year off right, 2022, burning a little body fat with a nice intermittent fasting plan. But obviously, if you have any questions, obviously ask all your questions. You know, I can always pull the questions right into the live stream like I typically do. Oh, Brent is here. Thanks, Brent. I appreciate you showing up. Very cool. That's great. Also, just give me a thumbs up if the sound and the picture's good and all that. Once again, had a little bit of a glitchy start trying to get things all going. And also, I'd love to know where you're from. I always find that really interesting because so many people from all across the country and all across the world to show for these live streams, which is so fun for me. It's really exciting. And if you're new to me, my name is 𝙒𝘾𝙃𝙏𝘾. I've been a fitness trainer, gym owner, health coach for over 30 years. I've helped thousands of people lose weight, burn body fat, and just get into amazing shape. Okay, so let's get started with this live stream. I'm assuming, Brian, since you're here, I'm assuming that the sound and picture is good. So any issues with that, let me know, and I'll see if I can fix it. Okay, let's first go over what is intermittent fasting. And it's so simple. All it means is that you're compressing your eating window. So you're cycling between periods of eating and not eating. Like, for example, you go to sleep at night. Oh, you're from Florida. Cool. Oh, the weather must be nice in Florida. That's great. All good. Hi from New York. Hey, Rosie's here too. We got Brent here. Rosie. Brent from Florida. Rosie from New York. That's great. Excellent. So all it means is that you're cycling between periods of eating and not eating. Like when you go to bed at night, if you don't wake up in the middle of the night and eat something, you're in a fasted state. Even though, unfortunately, a lot of people do wake up in the middle of the night and throw cookie in their mouth, which I obviously don't want you to do, right? So when you wake up in the morning, you have your food, breakfast, breaking your fast. That's all that intermittent fasting means. I just want to make a difference between intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating. What I'm going to be talking about here is a little bit more towards time-restricted eating. Oh, we got Texas. Oh, thanks, Brad. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Central Texas, cool. The weather must be pretty good there as well. That's great. Oh, 33. Wow, it's cold in Texas. Unreal. I didn't realize that. Wow. Okay. So, what was I saying? So, right. All right. The difference between intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating, or some people use the term time-restricted feeding, is when you do these fasting protocols that I'm going to be talking about today, if you do them intermittently, like not every day, that would be intermittent fasting. But if you do them every single day, like we're going to be talking about 16-8, where you fast for 16 hours, then condense your eating window to only 8 hours. If you do that every single day, that's time-restricted eating. But if you do it intermittently, like once, 2, 3 times a week, that would be intermittent fasting. And in my opinion, there are pros and cons to both, but we're going to discuss that too. And then I would classify intermittent fasting as anything lasting between 12 to 36 hours. I kind of that's kind of a sweet spot for me. I know there's definitely the benefits of doing extended fasting, like 48 hour, 36, 3, 4, 5 day fasting. But I'm going to focus more in this live stream more on 12 to 36 hour fast. And I'm also going to really emphasize that there's a lot of benefits to just fasting 12 to 14 hours, without a doubt. We're going to really cover that in detail here. Okay, so let's go into, let's talk about how to fast. What does it mean to be in a fasted state? I know it could be a little confusing. And some people use the term, I even did a video on this, like dirty fasting to clean fasting. Let's talk about clean fasting. Clean fasting, it's really simple. It just means no calories. You don't eat anything that has calories. You don't drink anything that has calories. It's almost like water fasting in a way. But you can have things like herbal tea, like black coffee, pretty much has almost no calories to it. You can have green tea. Maybe there's like a calorie in a cup of black coffee, green tea. That's what I mean by being in a fasted state. Okay, but there's something called dirty fasting, which is kind of interesting too, which I think for most people, I think is totally fine. Dirty fasting means that maybe you take in just a few calories, like maybe you just put like a teaspoon of half and half in your coffee. Maybe you put a little bit of like monk fruit or stevia or sweetener in your tea or your coffee, something like that. Maybe you have a diet soda, some artificial sweeteners during your fasting state. And that's a little debatable because some research has shown that, when you take in artificial sweeteners, your pancreas still might produce insulin because they sense the sweetness, even though there were no calories to store away. But it can possibly lead to hunger down the road. So initially, if you can do it clean, meaning that only take like no calorie liquids, I think you'd be better off. And there's some other things too. There's apple cider vinegar people like to take when they're fasting because that helps control blood sugar, pretty much has no calories. There's a lot of tricks, but let's keep it really simple, for this live stream. Let's say when you're fasting, you're just going to take no calories in if you can. I think you'll get the best results that way. Okay, and any questions, let me know. Okay, so let's go. Let's change camera. I don't like that camera angle. Okay, let's go over all the different types of fasting. Okay, so let's say Monday morning, tomorrow morning, you're gonna start off and you're gonna try one of these fasting protocols. But we're gonna go over a whole 4-week plan that I think I'd like you to follow. I even gave you like a bonus week, a 5-week. Let's see what Brett has. I have to take magnesium to sleep. No, I think that's good. Magnesium I think is a great thing for sleep. I personally take it. There's so many different types of magnesium. I like magnesium citrate. It's affordable. I like it too. It's great for constipation. Pulls water into the colon. Most people don't get that 400 milligrams of potassium every day. I think it helps me sleep as well. I take 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium citrate right before I go to sleep pretty much every single day. I generally take the one that I take that brand Blue Bonnet. I may even have a picture of it somewhere. I'll pull it in maybe later. I'll link it below the video after this. I take that Blue Bonnet. Each pill is 200 milligrams. Magnesium pills are kind of big, so some people have an issue swallowing them. But I think it's great. I think it's a good thing to do, Brent, for sure. Okay, so let's go over all the different popular types of intermittent fasting. And like I said earlier, I consider a 12 to a 14-hour fasting. And I'm going to use the term intermittent fasting and time restricted eating interchangeably. But I think you're gonna follow along what I'm talking about. So I think a 12 to 14-hour fast is a great way to get started. Real simple. Most people no way go 14 hours without eating. Most people eat 14, 15, 16 hours a day. So that's one type. Another type, which is probably the most popular, is the 16-8, where you're fasting for 16 hours, taking in all your calories with an 8-hour eating window, right? 18-6, like fasting for 2 additional hours. That's my sweet spot. That's what I personally like the best. 18-6, fast for 18 hours, taking all your calories in a 6-hour eating window. Then there's a 24, which, the popular book with that was the Warrior Diet, where you fast for 20 hours, and then you're taking all your calories in only a 4-hour eating window. That's, a little more advanced, a little bit more difficult. Then there's like a 24-hour fast. Obviously, this wouldn't be time-restricted eating because you can't fast every day for the rest of your life. That would be done intermittently. Another book I love, one of the first fasting books I ever read, was Eat, Stop Eating, and he prescribed like 1 to 2 24-hour fasts per week, which I think that's a great thing to do. I like to do a 24-hour fast. I was doing it every Monday for a while, but I do it at least once a month. I may start up, though, next week doing it every Monday again. And then there's the OMAD diet, the 1 meal a day diet. That could be similar to the 20-hour fast, but like typically an OMAD diet is you fast for 23 hours, then you have one big meal within a 1-hour eating window. I have a number of videos all about that on YouTube talking about the OMAD diet. I have my own version of it. I like the 1.5 OMAD diet, where you have one small meal where you're taking protein to make sure you're getting an adequate amount of protein, and then you have your one big meal like an hour later, give yourself like a 2-hour eating window. But we'll talk about that more too. Then there's the alternate day fasting strategy, where you eat one day and then you fast the next day. You eat one day and fast the next day. More aggressive, but I do like that approach short term as well. And then I always like to talk about this TUMAD. TUMAD just means that you're only eating 2 meals a day. And we're going to talk about it in more detail, but when I map out this 4-week program, there are some times where I'm going to want you to eat 2 meals a day, and there are other times where I'm going to want you to eat 3 meals a day. And that's my way of having you cycle your calories. See, I'm a big believer in some days like being in a calorie deficit, where you're burning body fat, where you're losing weight, and other days going up to at least maintenance calories, which they say that's good for your metabolism. Because I talk about this all the time, whenever you lose weight, it's called metabolic adaptation. Your metabolism is going to slow down, but you can over-exaggerate that slowdown if you're like indefinitely in a calorie deficit. You know, you have to go up to maintenance from time to time, take like diet breaks. That's kind of my way of doing it. See, this whole thing with intermittent fasting, one of the reasons why I think it works so well is that it's an amazing way of reducing calories without necessarily counting calories. Because most people, when they give themselves a smaller eating window, will just automatically eat less. That's what the research has shown. That's what my personal experience is, working with like so many people over the years, that if you give them only an 8-hour eating window, they're going to eat less. And it could be a little counterintuitive. Some people may think, oh my God, Mike, if I fast for 16 hours, I'm going to gorge myself for 8 hours. Generally not the case. 90% of the time, you're just going to eat less. Right? So I like to go into a calorie deficit and then up to maintenance calories. Good for the metabolism, because when you eat food, especially protein, the thermic effect of protein, it's going to boost up your metabolism. So keep that in mind. That's why I like 2MAD and 3MAD. We're going to talk about it in great detail, though. You'll see. Okay. Let's also cover, like, it's, you know, sometimes when I do these live streams, I pull in studies. If you want me to ever send you any studies, you can always email me or leave a comment under the video, and I'll reference the studies. But I seem like whenever I pull into the studies in these live streams, no one seems to be all that interested in the studies, and I get too deep into the science, and then people people aren't that excited about it. So I want to keep the momentum going. So I'll just talk about some of the benefits, and if you want to see the studies, let me know. I can send it to you. Okay. One of the main benefits, like I just talked about, intermittent fasting, in my opinion, or time restricted eating, right, is an excellent way to lose weight and burn body fat. And really, the main reason is it's just a great way, like I said, to reduce calories. When you restrict your eating window, you're going to be eating less. So you're going to be in a calorie deficit. That's number one. The second thing I find that it's so incredible for is increasing insulin sensitivity. And that's the thing that's so, that's one of the main benefits also of being in a fasted state. And I don't know if you read Dr. 𝙒𝘼𝙏𝘾𝙃's book, The Obesity Code. He made that incredible argument that the only reason why people are overweight is not really calories, it has to do with hormones. And he talks about insulin a lot. So insulin is the main storage hormone. So whenever you eat a meal, right, the pancreas produces, the beta cells, the pancreas produces insulin to store away those excess calories, right? So excess carbs get stored in the muscle and the liver. Fat goes into fat cells, right? The problem is that the liver and the muscles can only hold so much stored carbohydrates. Maybe the muscle can hold maybe 1,500, 2,000 calories, the liver 200 to 400 calories. Once they're full, all those excess carbs are going to be converted to body fat. And if you've been consistently like overweight and pounding carbohydrates for like a decade or so, you're going to become, unfortunately, insulin resistant. You're going to have like metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease. All the bad things start happening when the muscle and the liver are full with carbohydrates and you keep on eating more. And then also what happens is that insulin, the pancreas keeps on producing insulin, but insulin stops working. Like, it doesn't help you store away blood sugar properly, so your blood sugar goes up and you get a whole bunch of problems. So I think one of the tremendous benefits and one of the keys to keeping insulin low is just to being in a fasted state. Also eating a low carb diet, whole natural food diet as well, but fasting is probably the best way to keep insulin low, to increase insulin sensitivity, so then when you do eat, insulin could do its job properly. So that's another tremendous benefit, in my opinion, of intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating. Okay, research also show that it can help lower blood pressure, which is kind of cool. Alternate day fasting is, I read a study that really helped with lowering blood pressure. Extended fasting really does. I don't talk about extending fasting too much because I'm not a doctor, but I read a study where people did water fasted for 5 days, dramatically lowered systolic and diastolic blood pressure. But if you're going to do an extended fast, I would do it with a doctor's supervision for sure. You can check out Dr. 𝙒𝘼𝙏𝘾𝙃's site, or I think Dr. Ken Berry has some great groups too if you're looking to do extended fasting. Another thing that fasting has been shown to do is increase human growth hormone, like a counter-regulatory hormone. That's one of the reasons why, yes, whenever you lose weight, your metabolism will slow down. But in my opinion, when you lose weight through fasting, I think you'll get a little bit more of a human growth hormone spike as opposed to just restricting calories, and it can help keep the metabolism up, help you maintain muscle mass, which is kind of cool. Also, human growth hormone kicks in a little bit more in those deeper fasts. Once you start going like 20, 24 hours or so, that's when human growth hormone kind of kicks in. With a 16-hour fast, maybe not as much. At least that's what their preliminary research is saying. And also, there were new studies coming out every single week. All the initial studies were on like mice, and mice are different than humans, which is kind of interesting. Like that famous study that made time restricted eating is so popular. Dr. Panda did that time restricted eating study where he took some mice. It's kind of interesting. He took some mice and just restricted their eating window to like 8 hours and fed them the same exact calories, same food as another group of mice who were able to eat like around the clock. And just from restricting the eating window, those mice lost weight, had better blood work, blah, blah, blah. All the incredible things. That was really like a landmark study that was done years ago. And now more and more human studies are coming out every single day. I've read human studies similar. There was a great study that I talk about all the time about bodybuilders, weightlifters, who one group ate 3 meals a day, same amount of calories, same amount of protein, carbs, fat, same macros. The other group only ate those 3 meals a day when a restricted eating window. The group who restricted their eating window lost body fat, had better blood work, and maintained muscle mass. So there are even human studies, similar to that says that there are tremendous benefits to fasting. And this is a big one: lower triglycerides. I mean, in my opinion, why triglycerides get high is people are just eating too many carbohydrates. They're eating too much fructose, high fructose corn syrup, goes right to the liver to be processed. If you want to lower your cholesterol, cut back on your carbohydrates or go in a fasted state. Just think, when you're fasting, what are you doing? You're dipping into stored energy, right? You're burning those stored carbohydrates from the muscle, from the liver, right? You're burning stored body fat from fat cells. You're letting the fat come out of the fat cell when you're in a fasted state so you can burn it. So, for example, the opposite hormone from insulin is glucagon. Like glucagon will help release fat out of fat cells so you can burn it. There's some other hormones too, but that's like the simple explanation. So when you're fasted state, fasting definitely, studies have shown, helps with triglycerides. And this is a big one too. This is autophagy. Autophagy is like the body's way of cleaning out damaged cells, like damaged or weak organelles, recycling. You're kind of going into repair mode. And it's so autophagy could be a little confusing because it is somewhat of a never-ending process. Even if you never fasted, never did anything, you're still going to get some autophagy. But being in a fasted state, exercising, whenever you're in like a repair mode, just think, when you're eating food, you're kind of like, in a way, you're in a growth mode, like mTOR, growth signaling starts, right? When you're in a fasted state, it's the opposite. You're burning stored energy, burning stored calories. You're in like a repair mode. Look like that, like fed state, fasted state. So when you're in a fasted state, that's when autophagy, repair mode, kind of kicks in, which is kind of cool. Really hard to say exactly when it kicks in the most. Most people say the longer you fast, the more autophagy you will get. Like you start getting like 16, 17, 18 hours, it starts getting upregulated a little bit more. Obviously, it reaches a point of diminishing returns after a couple days. Really hard to say. I think it also depends on where you're coming from. Like if you start like a 16-hour fast, and your muscles and liver are already relatively low in carbohydrates, who knows, you may go pop into ketosis, you may upregulate autophagy in 16 hours. If you started a 16-hour fast and your muscle and liver are full to the brim, and you're insulin resistant, you get all these different issues, who knows, maybe it'll take a little bit longer for autophagy to kick in. The people wrote books on autophagy. I read one recently, which is kind of interesting. Okay. The other thing is, actually, there's a great study talking about it reduces cancer risk with as little as a 14-hour fast. There was this landmark study done on women who had breast cancer. They were in remission. Then they had they took one group and they had them like fast for 14 hours a day. They were able to drink just a little like herbal tea and low-calorie liquids at night compared to another group. The group that fasted for 14 hours had a much less reoccurrence of breast cancer, which is wonderful. So I think there's definitely some real benefits to it. Plus, Dr. Longo, the longevity diet, he's done a lot of research talking about how fasting can help with like reducing the amount of chemo you might need during cancer treatment, things like that. Really interesting. There really are some tremendous benefits to fasting that I think that more and more is coming out almost every single day. And it also reduces inflammation when you're in a fasted state, kind of like in repair mode. So tremendous benefits, in my opinion, of being in a fasted state. Best way to burn stored energy, right? Just think about it. If you're constantly eating all day long, constantly spiking insulin, it makes it really difficult for your body to dip into stored energy, even if you're not eating too much, especially if you've been doing that for decades. It could be really hard. That insulin resistance thing's pretty powerful. And in my opinion, one of the best ways to reverse it is to experiment with this fasting, intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating. Okay, so let's kick into, first of all, any questions? I think I was doing a lot of talking there. Any questions about anything? Everything, the sound is still good, picture's still good. I'm going to assume we got a yes, okay? And then we still got a bunch of people in the room, which is great. Okay. Also, I want to know if everyone thinks this is a good time. I want to start doing this every Sunday morning, or maybe every other Sunday morning too. Okay, let's go into week 1. Okay, let's say, let's just make up like a case study or something. Let's say you're a 50-year-old guy or gal. Okay, you gain maybe 5 to 7 pounds over the holidays, which is so typical. The average person gains from Thanksgiving to New Year's between 5 to 7 pounds. It's interesting. If you follow me a little bit, I knew I was going to be eating more over the holidays, so I kind of did a real aggressive like fasting strategy a couple weeks before. Yep, everything's good, Rose. Sound and picture's good. Oh, thanks, Rosie. I appreciate that. So I did like an aggressive fasting protocol where I went into ketosis, ate a very low carb diet for a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. So I lost like 3 pounds. I gained it back over the holidays. I was even up 1 because I did, indulge myself a little bit with some cookies and things like that over the holidays. So if that's you, say you're 50 years old, or you gained some weight over the holidays, you want to get started with intermittent fasting, you've been hearing about it, you're hearing celebrities doing it, let's give you like a real simple way of getting started. So let's say you're going to start Monday. And I do it 2 different ways. Sometimes when I start people on intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, sometimes I like them to first clean up their diet, meaning that get away from the processed food, switch over to a low-carb, whole natural food diet. But sometimes I find that really difficult for people. So in this particular 4-week program, I would say just keep on eating what you're eating. You see, on the 5th week, we're going to talk about then working on food quality. But let's just say you're going to stick to your normal diet, but you're going to wake up on Monday, and you're going to start anywhere between a 12 to a 14-hour fast for week number 1. Okay? And it's a real easy way of doing it. This is what I like to say. All you have to do is delay breakfast by 90 minutes and then eat dinner 90 minutes sooner. So let's say you typically wake up 7 o'clock, you have breakfast at 8. You're not going to eat until 9:30, which is no big deal. You're going to have your black coffee, you're going to have your green tea. Same thing with dinner. If you typically eat dinner like 7 o'clock, you're going to have dinner, what's that, like 5:36? You're going to have dinner at 5:30. Or if you typically eat at 8, you're going to have dinner at 6:30. Just do that for a week. I guarantee the first week you're going to lose some weight. You're going to eat less. You're also going to feel better because you're going to sleep better at night. You really should be done eating a minimum of 2 hours, even 3 hours before going to bed at night. So if you can just do that, and actually there's a great study that supported this, like 67% of the people who did that, who delayed breakfast by 90 minutes and ate dinner 90 minutes sooner, lowered their body fat, lost weight compared to the control group, and 67% of them ate less calories. So you're automatically going to eat less. I think that's the simplest way to get started. It could be a teeny bit challenging for the first week, but it's going to set you up for more aggressive fasting strategies down the road. So that's what we're going to do. That's week 1. You can do it. If you want a little support, leave comments underneath this video once I post it, and I'll keep you motivated. I'll keep you going. Okay, that's week 1. Okay, now week 2, I think you're going to be a little bit more motivated because you're going to see that you're a couple pounds lighter. You lost a little water weight. You lost a little bloat. You probably depleted some of your stored carbohydrates in your muscle and your liver, so you get a little momentum going. Now you're going to go to the classic strategy, which is 16-8. And this is the most popular one. I think it's a great one, where you're going to fast for 16 hours, then take in all your calories with an 8-hour eating window. And you don't have to change your diet at this point. You can eat all the food you want. You can eat as much food. You're going to be eating less than you think, though, because you just automatically will with only 8-hour eating window. So, wake up in the morning. You can do it either way. Okay, this is what the research is showing. I've experimented with all different schedules and how I would do 16-8. For years and years and years, I always skipped breakfast, and it just worked better for my schedule. I wanted to eat dinner with my wife and kids at night, and it works better for me. Even though there is new research out there saying that due to your normal circadian rhythm, like your circadian rhythm is your own normal internal clock. And it regulates hormones, it regulates metabolism, regulates appetite, regulates so many different things. Like when you wake up in the morning, you want sunlight to hit your eyes. You want that blue light in the morning. It kind of kickstarts your metabolism, right? It helps you, get lower melatonin. It elevates the stress hormone cortisol, to release carbohydrates, to release energy, to get you up, get you going. So it's good to get sunlight in the morning. And there is a lot of new research saying that it might be better when it comes to doing these fasting strategies to take in food earlier in the day, especially protein. There is some studies saying that taking in protein earlier in the day can help you maintain muscle mass, good for muscle hypertrophy. There is some good benefits to it. I tried it. I'm not hungry in the morning. I want to eat dinner at night with my wife and kids. My kids are at college now. I want to eat dinner with my wife at night. So I always skip breakfast. It's just how I do it. And I still think you'll get tremendous benefit if you skip breakfast. But you can totally eat breakfast on a 16-8, right? Then just have an early last meal. Be done eating at like 4 o'clock. That would probably be the best way of doing it. But I think you'll get like 95% of the benefit skipping breakfast, breaking your fast, say 12 in the afternoon, having your last meal be done with your last meal by 8 in the evening. That will be a classic 16-8. So you skip breakfast, drink a lot of mineral water. You want to stay hydrated. Your black coffee, your green tea, taking no calories. You break your fast 12 in the afternoon with your first meal. Make sure you're done with your last meal by 8 in the evening. And I have to say that a lot of people think they're doing 16-8, but then when they give me their food diary, and then or when I really start talking to them, they say, oh, well, yeah, I finished dinner before 8, but I had a glass of wine at 9 o'clock. Or, oh, yeah, maybe I did have a cookie at 10 o'clock. You have to really stick to the 16-8 if you do it. If 16-8 is too hard for you, then stick with the 14-hour fast for a while. But whatever you decide you're going to do, I would say really do it. Like I said, and why this works, like we said earlier, excellent way to reduce calories, excellent way to keep insulin levels low, right? Excellent way to dip into stored energy. You will lose weight doing 16-8. I hate to say lose weight. You will burn body fat, in my opinion, doing 16-8. I think it'll really work. So I think the first week, right? Week number 1, 12 to 14 hours. Now you're going to make sure you go into a 16-hour fast. You haven't changed your diet. You're just condensing your eating window. Any questions, guys and gals? Let me know. Okay, so let's go to week number 3. So now you should be a few pounds lighter for sure at this point. You should also be feeling better. I think you're going to be sleeping better. Also, sleep. Not getting enough sleep is so correlated to weight gain. If you're chronically sleep deprived, the stress hormone cortisol is going to be elevated. It's going to be chronically elevated. It's going to mess up your metabolism. If you don't sleep, 7-8 hours a night, I think you're going to have issues. Also, research has shown that if you only sleep 2 to 3 hours, you become insulin resistant. Like me, even though I'm I think super insulin sensitive. I eat a low carb, whole natural food diet. I work out all the time. I do these fasting strategies all the time. If I get one bad night's sleep, like say tonight I only sleep 3 hours, when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to be insulin resistant. That means if I eat a lot of food, it's not going to be processed properly. It's probably going to be converted into body fat a lot easier than when I had a good night's sleep. So sleep is such a big thing. I like Sean Stevenson's book. He's got a great book on sleep. So many good books out there. And another guy, I've been listening to his podcast like crazy. I talk about him all the time. Andrew 𝘒�ヰ𝙓𝙏, the 𝘒�ヰ𝙓𝙏 Labs. He's a professor of neuroscience at Stanford. He goes into all these different things so in depth. I love his podcast. I'm going to reference him more in the past too. Okay, so week number 3, we're going to get a little bit more aggressive. Instead of doing a 16-8, we're going to try to stay in a fasted state for 2 more hours. We're going to go 18-6. Right? And believe me, it may sound hard now if you've never done it before. But if you first did a 14-hour fast for 1 week, then you did a 16-hour fast, you'll be able to do an 18-6. And what's the benefit of 2 more hours? Let's see, Chuck. Let's see. Okay, Chuck. Is 18-6 even better? I've been doing it for a month. I think it is. Hey, it depends. Obviously, it depends what your goals are. Like the benefits of being fasted for 2 more hours is, I think you'll get a little more upregulation of that autophagy, because the longer you're fasting, you'll be in autophagy. 2 more hours in a fasted state, right? 2 more hours of keeping insulin levels low, increasing insulin sensitivity. 2 more hours of dipping into stored energy, right? Stored body fat, stored carbohydrates. So I think it's good, but it's more, Chuck, is more the big picture, like of what your goals are and where you're coming from. Like I think 18-6 every single day for an extended period of time may be a little too aggressive. It may put you into too much of a calorie deficit for too long. So I want you to go up to maintenance. Like I can see you doing 18-6 for maybe 6 weeks, then taking 2 weeks off, upping your calories. But if you're making a conscious effort to make sure you're eating enough within the 6-hour eating window, I think that works. And that's going to be week the next week. I'm going to explain to you. Like, for example, I like doing 18-6, where some days I eat 2 meals a day, and that would be my calorie deficit day. But then other days, I make sure I do take in 3 meals. I'll take in an extra smaller meal, make sure I'm getting enough protein, make sure I'm upping my calorie to at least maintenance. But I love 18-6. I seem to gravitate toward 18-6. That's probably my fasting. That's probably my favorite strategy for sure. Let's see what Chuck says, really. I'm doing it 5 days a week, less than the weekend. I think that's good. So maybe you're automatically kind of like cycling your calories. So 5 days a week, you're probably in a calorie deficit doing 18-6. And on the weekends, you may be eating more like, you're more like circadian rhythm, more like you may be having a normal, just like 3 meals a day within like a normal like 8 or 10 hour eating window, and you're probably eating more, taking in more calories. I think that's a great way of doing it. The only negative, and this is kind of a new thing from that I've been studying a little bit, looking at some of the research, some people feel that you should stick to your normal circadian rhythm pretty close all the time, even on the weekends. Like, so how I like to cycle my calories is I like to kind of stick to these like 16-8 or 18-6, so keep my circadian rhythm kind of same, like kind of eat around the same time, kind of stop eating around the same time, but I like to make just a conscious effort of some days eating more and other days eating less, so I don't throw my body off too much. But I think that's a good strategy too. I do. I think that's a very good strategy, just doing 18-6 5 days a week, and then just taking the weekends off, having a little bit of fun, enjoying yourself, upping your calories a little bit. I think you'll do great with that overall. Okay. And this also, let me talk about this too. Another cool thing about, once you start getting into the 18-6, and maybe Chuck, you'll find this interesting too, is that you're probably going to start dipping into ketosis at this point. Meaning that ketosis means that, well, I shouldn't necessarily say that. I mean, I definitely would dip into ketosis because I'm a low-carb eater. If you haven't changed your diet, you may not dip into ketosis. But if you're eating what we're going to talk about in week 5, if you're eating more of a low-carb, whole natural food diet, and you've been doing these fasting strategies, and you're in week 3, you're probably going to dip into ketosis a little bit. And ketosis means that the liver is very low in carbohydrates, so it's converting body fat into ketone bodies like beta-hydroxybutyrate. So you're in like the ideal fat burning state. And I find that for me, when I do 18-6, I don't know about you, Chuck, if you're eating like a more of a lower carb type meal diet. What I mean by low carb is, let's say you're 150 pounds, you're eating like 100 grams of carbs or less. If you're 200 pounds, you're a bigger guy or gal, you're eating 150 grams of carbs or less. I'm not talking ketogenic diet. I just mean like low carb, whole natural foods. You're eating good whole vegetables, some fruits, maybe just like a couple of grains here or there. You're keeping an eye on how many carbs you're eating. I think by week 3 in a program like this, you're probably going to be dipping into ketosis. And there are some great benefits for the brain and just for burning body fat to being in a state of ketosis. That's another benefit of going from 16-hour fast to an 18-hour fast. Maybe at 16 hours, you're not in ketosis, right? But that 2 more hours of fasting, maybe you dipped into ketosis, which is a kind of a good thing, I think. Okay, let's talk about week 4. And this is really related to what Chuck was saying. Let me give you a better camera angle for this too. Okay. So let's talk about week 4. This is kind of an interesting strategy. This is what I do all the time, like I was talking about. So week 4 now, you should be a few pounds lighter, like I talked about. Your body fat should be lower. You should be sleeping better. You should be feeling better. You say, I got something going here. I really like this fasting thing. I could do it. It's really working for me. And that's kind of when week 4 starts up. This gets a little bit more sophisticated week 4. So week 4, you're going to mix up your fasting schedule. And even though I have time intermittent fasting here, it's really more time restricted eating because you've been doing it every day now and you're on week 4. Okay, one day you're going to do 16-8 and you're going to eat 3 meals a day. Right? So that's going to day where you're going to be maintenance or maybe just in a slight calorie deficit. But then on the other day, say Monday you're doing 16-8, but then on a Tuesday you're going to do 2 OMAD. You're only going to eat 2 meals a day. And you're going to be in a calorie deficit, right? I like this strategy a lot. I do this all the time. So what I do is, like on the days that I'm doing my hard resistance training, because I own a gym and I want to maintain my muscle mass. I've always been like into weightlifting, and I'm a little on the bodybuilding side of things. So I like to do 16-8 on the days when I'm doing my resistance training. Say I lift weights 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I always have like a post-protein shake. I like celery juice for collagen protein and maybe some hemp seed protein. I'm into this beetroot powder I've been putting in my shakes now too, and maybe some green vibrance, that green superfood. So I up my calories on the days when I'm doing resistance training. So I'll eat 3 meals a day on a 16-8. But then on an 18-6, I want to be in a calorie deficit. I'll do 2 OMAD. I'll only eat 2 meals a day. And I love that strategy. I think that's a great thing to do. And you can do that on week 4. And I think that's a little bit of what we were talking about with Chuck, but he's doing it where he's upping his calories on the weekends, which I think is a good strategy too. But I kind of like this because this kind of keeps your body somewhat eating around the same time, only 2 hours difference. So your circadian rhythm is the same. So for example, when I'm doing 16-8, say I break my fast at 12. But when I'm doing 18-6, I may break my fast at 2. Not all that different. So my internal clock is kind of used to eating at the same time. But 3 days a week, I'm eating more calories, right? Maybe 3 days a week, I'm in a calorie deficit. So maintenance of deficit, which I really like that strategy a lot too. Okay, so it's kind of cool. Any questions, anyone? All right, let's keep this party going. Now I want to talk about a week 5, a bonus week. So now, hopefully, you've been doing this for a month. I don't know, maybe you're 10 pounds lighter, hopefully. Maybe you burn 10 pounds of body fat. Who knows? Maybe even more, maybe a little bit less, depending upon your starting point. Like where you're starting always has a big factor. But at this point is where I think you're ready to start cleaning up the diet. See, sometimes I'll start with people right out of the gate saying, clean the diet up. See, my diet is a low-carb, whole natural food diet. And like I said, if you're 150 pounds or less, maybe 100 grams of carbs a day. If you're 200 or so, 150, maybe you just want to dramatically reduce your carbohydrates and you want to switch to a whole natural food diet. So let me pull up some, and this is when I think you're going to start doing incredibly well. And this is the long-term lifetime plan. So let me give you an idea what I'm talking about when I say a low-carb, whole natural food diet. Let me give you a dinner first. To me, this is like, let me get this out of the way. To me, this is an ideal dinner. I always like to say, you want to have 2 servings of vegetables, different colors, and a nice, good quality piece of protein. You always want to prioritize protein in your diet. My general rule for protein is 0.9 grams of protein per pound of lean body weight. So for example, let's say you're 150 pounds and you're 20% body fat. So that means you're about 120 pounds of like lean mass. Times that by 0.9, that brings you, I think it's 108 grams of protein, maybe 110, 115 grams of protein. You can even go 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Every 4 ounces of chicken, fish, and meat is 25 grams of protein. See, protein has a great big thermic effect too. When you eat 100 calories of protein, you're going to burn up 25-30% of those calories just digesting the protein. So the net calories are 25-30% less. Plus, there's the building blocks of the body. Yeah, I talk about this all the time too. I believe in that protein leverage hypothesis, which states that you're going to keep on eating until you take in an adequate amount of protein. That's one of the main reasons why, in my opinion, people overeat. So if you're constantly eating foods that are low in protein, like you're eating a lot of grains, a lot of pasta, a lot of rice, like things like that, and that's the cornerstone of your diet, and like, processed foods, you're always going to be hungry because you're not taking enough protein, or you have to eat so much of it to actually get enough protein. So I would prioritize protein in the diet. So this is like what I consider to be like an ideal meal, like low carb, whole natural food diet. Nice big piece. This is salmon right here. High in omega-3 is healthy fats. Hard to tell how big that piece of salmon is, but it's pretty big. I would say it's 3/4 of a pound. This is an oversized like serving plate. String beans, cauliflower, 2 different colors vegetables. Ideal. This is how you have to start eating. So week number 5, I'd like you to start cleaning up the diet. Let me give you an idea of how I broke my fast on this particular day. I know people say, oh, Mike, bacon. I think bacon's fine. I buy low sodium bacon. I think it's okay. I wouldn't eat it every day, but occasionally I'll have it. These are like 3 or 4 pasture-raised eggs. Then we got my whole natural blueberries. And now this is an ideal low-carb meal. Let's see, we got a question here. Okay. So if I do dirty fast by putting cream in my coffee, but I eat only a small meal 12 and 1 p.m., then another between 5 and 6 p.m. Does that? Yes, I think that's excellent. I wouldn't worry about that, putting a little bit of cream in the coffee. Maybe you'd call that dirty fasting. I do that sometimes. I mean, don't make it light, right? When we're talking cream, we're talking, like a tablespoon of cream. I think it takes a little bit of the bitterness out of the coffee. I would not worry about it at all. So actually, another famous guy I always follow is Mark Sesson. He was one of the originators that made like ancestral like living and eating popular. He wrote that book, The Primal Blueprint. I read all his books. He wrote the book Primal Endurance, A Case in Keto Reset. He just wrote a new book, which I didn't read yet, because 2 meals a day. He talks about, not only does he put cream in his coffee in the morning, he also puts sugar, like 1 sugar in his coffee, and he still considers the fact that he's fasting. I don't think it's going to hurt you that bad. And, you have to enjoy your life. A little bit of cream in your coffee in the morning, I think is totally okay. Let's see what Rosie's got. Why two different color vegetables? Oh, Rosie, good question. Why, you know, different vitamins, different minerals, different nutrients. You know, like a rainbow color of vegetables. Just think like red beets, they can have different stuff in it than even a golden beet, right? Or like a green string beans can have something in a different color than a yellow squash. So different vitamins, different flavonoids, you know, all different vitamins, minerals, and nutrients go by color to some degree. That's why you want to have like blueberries and raspberries, blue and red, right? You know, that's why you want to, you know, it makes sense to mix it up. Okay, let's see. Hey, 𝘾𝙊𝙏𝘾𝙃, how you doing? Oh, thanks for showing up, 𝘾𝙊𝙏𝙏. That's great. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great New Year's. Thanks. All right. So this would be a good example of maybe a breakfast. Let me give you some more examples. This would be like another what I would consider to be a, let me close that one out. This is what I mean by low-carb, whole natural food diet that you're going to start on week 5. Another big, this is Arctic chard. We got our asparagus, right, which is green. Tomato salad with some onions, which is red. I mean, this is how you have to eat for the rest of your life. And this is when I think oh, great. Thanks, Carol. 𝘾𝙊𝙏𝘾𝙃, I'm glad you had a good New Year's. This is when you're really going to start seeing the difference, seeing the body fat starts falling off your body in conjunction with the intermittent fasting. Once you start cleaning up the diet, I mean, you can go this route first, like we talked about, instead of doing it. You know, you can do it either way. I've had better success though with people with intermittent fasting when first they don't change their diet. They talk about, and we'll review the whole thing again. They do exactly what I talked about with the 4 weeks. Then week 5, once they have momentum and they see results, then they clean up their diet. If I had to go with the 2, I would probably do that first. First, get used to restricting your eating window, and then you can start messing around with cleaning up the diet. But it's okay if you want to just go for it right out of the gate. And this is another example. This is my go-to meal when I break my fast all the time. I love this because I try to eat fish almost every day. Let's see what 𝘾𝙊𝙏𝘾𝙃 had to say. Okay, I have to go back and look in the beginning. I'm late. Oh yeah, no, yeah, that's okay, 𝘾𝙊𝙏𝘾𝙃. I appreciate you showing up. I'll do a quick review of the 4 weeks as well too. You may be a little bit familiar with it. I know you showed up to a number of these live streams and you watch my YouTube channel, but I'll review the whole thing. This is one of my go-to meals. I love this meal. This is my smoked salmon. There's like 4 ounces of smoked salmon, can of sardines. Sardines to me is like probably one of the best foods you can possibly eat, because you know what's so cool about sardines is that you're eating the bones inside the sardines, so they're high in calcium, right? You get the connective tissue, you get the skin, everything, high in omega-3s, low in mercury because it's more like low on the food chain. I love sardines. I eat almost a can. My favorite brand is Henry and Lisa's. You know, I talk about it all the time. It's like a small company. They're great. You know, wild caught, PBA-free can, love it. Then we get some raspberries, and my other superfood, which I eat every single day too, is an avocado. High in potassium. Adequate intake of potassium is 4,700 milligrams a day. A nice size avocado, you get 1,000. You get almost 25% of your potassium. Yes, there are a decent amount of carbohydrates in an avocado, but loaded with fiber. So the net carbs are actually really low, which is really cool. Let's see what William's got to say. Hey, William, how you doing? Hey, Mike. If you are on keto, what do you think of eating those big prepackaged beef patty burgers? I don't know if these are processed meat. You know, it's hard to say. I think it could be totally okay. You know, if you can, obviously, everyone talks about grass-fed, grass-finished because the fat profile is better. You may get more omega-3s and a grass-fed, grass-finished type meat. But it's interesting. I watched the whole video on this. Dr. Ken Berry, I like his channel a lot. You know, he's like, you know, he's on a carnivore diet now. You know, he started out first with like low carb paleo, then he switched to like keto, and then he went to now he's carnivore. And he did a whole video on the different meats, and he was saying, you know, if you can afford and you really want to spend the money and you want to go with grass-fed, grass-finished, yes, it's probably a little bit better. But I don't think it's that much difference. You know, it's hard to say. I would look at the package, maybe speak. I don't know where you're buying, if you're buying it online or if there's a butcher at the supermarket. You know, speak to the butcher, see what they think. I think it's probably okay. There's definitely, you know, there's a good argument for eating beef patties as opposed to eating steak. See, it's good to get that connective tissue. You know who else talked about? Dr. Ted Needleman, and I loved his book, The PE Diet, one of my favorite books. I think it came out last year, the year before. My diet and his diet is probably the most similar to almost any other books I've ever read. I love his book. He prioritizes protein. He talks about maybe people get down on like beef patties, but he thinks they're actually probably better than eating a steak because you do get some of the connective tissue, like the tongue, like there's so many different, you know, when it comes to the beef, so many different things get ground up in that beef. if it is coming from a reasonably good source, like it's hormone-free, all that type of stuff, you might be better off eating beef patties as opposed to eating a steak, just because you're getting the connective tissue, right? That's why I always talk about it. That's why I always supplement my diet with collagen. I take collagen protein every single day. I take 20 grams. I like Vital Proteins, but there's so many good brands. Great Lakes is another good brand, because most of the like proline and glycine, those two amino acids, are great for your skin, great for your hair, great for your nails, great for connective tissue. You're not really getting it in unless you're eating, like they call it, from head to tail. If you're not like eating chicken and then gnawing on the edge of bones and chewing on the cartilage on the bone to get the collagen that way, or if you're not like drinking bone broth every single day, you're probably going to be low on collagen. So you may even get a little bit of that connective tissue and collagen and tendons and things like that in ground chopped meat. So you may be getting a little bit that way. Or maybe if you're making like chicken soup and you're like slowly cooking the bones. But I take 20 grams of collagen peptides every single day, and I see a difference in my skin. I definitely see a difference in my nails. My nails were splitting; they don't split anymore. I think that's a good addition to your diet, some collagen protein powder, for sure. Let's see what Collagen had to say. Okay. Have you tasted some nasty sardines? We don't have a huge selection here. I'll have to look for the brand. Yeah, I have. I find, well, I'm a big thing of like that PBA-free can, because I want to buy PBAs, to be kind of low. So you're limited. I used to buy wild what's the brand? Was it called Wild Sardines? But in the can wasn't PBA free. I think Henry and Lisa's are by far the best. These are them. You can see how big these sardines look too. It's kind of cool. You get either 3 or 4 per can. It's interesting. The price of these vary dramatically from supermarket to supermarket. I actually, like at Whole Foods, they're more money. They're like $4 a can at Whole Foods. There's a small grocery store, just like an Italian family owns this store near me in New York. It's called 𝙒𝘼𝘏𝑃𝑔𝑒. I really love them. They're so nice there too. And I get them for like $3.50 a can. I've seen them for $5 a can. You can order them on Amazon too. I even have a link. If you go to my Amazon, I have a storefront now where I'm putting products that I like in there. I link to Henry and Lisa's brand. You can buy like a small case of them. I think they're great. They're the best tasting. Never had a weird tasting. Never smells weird. I buy them in olive oil. You can also buy them like packed in spring water. I like olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil they pack it in, because I want the polyphenols, all the good stuff from olive oil. I do take in a lot of extra virgin olive oil every day. Most of my calories come from fat, but I don't do that bulletproof coffee. I don't really try to add fat to my meals. I just eat things like avocados, sardines, and olive oil, smoked salmon. I eat whole pasture-raised eggs all the time. I get most of my calories from fat, but from the whole natural foods I'm eating, not from like throwing butter on my steaks and things like that. I do use a lot of olive oil though when sauteing vegetables, and I do coat olive oil on like meat when I'm making meat. And it's interesting. I read a whole book on this. Who did this book? I think it was Dr. 𝙒𝘼𝙏𝑃𝑔𝑒. I forget who. It was co-written. And they were talking about, people are concerned about like the burn rate of olive oil, saying that, you don't want to cook with olive oil, it burns. But what they were trying to point out in this book is that there's so many polyphenols, so many great and wonderful things. Even Dr. Gundry talks about this too, in olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, that it's actually protective. That even if it burns a little bit, you're still probably better off coating your fish, coating your meat with extra virgin olive oil than not, because of all the health benefits of olive oil. Okay. Is there a good substitute for avocados with similar nutrients? I really can't. Yeah, now kind of, hey, you definitely, look at this. You definitely want, in my opinion, a good amount of fiber in your diet. That's one of the main reasons why I go with, I eat avocados. First of all, I do love the taste of them, but an average avocado can have 14, 15 grams of fiber. So if you're eating enough vegetables, let's say you're eating your string beans, your cauliflower, your broccoli, or like that, I even like to sprinkle ground flaxseed on things. You may notice that if you go to my Instagram page, �MikeCola Fitness, I post my meals all the time, and sometimes you'll see people say, "What's that mound of stuff on top of your, in your yogurt, or what's that, thing on top of your sardines?" It's like a tablespoon or 2 of ground flaxseed. So if you're getting enough fiber from eating a whole natural diet, you may not need the avocado. Right, and if you're taking in enough monounsaturated fat, there's good healthy fats from, say, olive oil, and you're getting your omega-3s, then you may not need an avocado. But it's hard to say. People do ask me that. It's very hard to replace an avocado when it comes to monounsaturated fat and fiber. But if you're getting enough fiber in your diet, and then you're getting good healthy fats, I think you'd be okay not having the avocado. But it's really hard to make an actual straight up substitute for it. Unfortunately, it is kind of hard. Okay. So let's let's do a quick review, because I know Carol Jean said you wanted to do a little quick review. Let's talk about let's go week 1. So Carol Jean, what we did, I just created a scenario where, let's say you gain some weight. Unfortunately, you're a 50-year-old guy or gal. I know you're probably younger, and you gain some weight from Thanksgiving to New Year's, like most people do, and you want to get started burning some body fat. You want to get started doing some intermittent fasting. And with this particular program, I said initially, don't change your diet. Wait till week 5, and then you're going to clean up your diet. So week 1, you're just going to do a 12 to 14 hour fast, really simple. Week 2, you're going to be a little bit more aggressive, do that classic 16-8, right? Week 3, even more aggressive, you're going to go 18-6, you're going to try to stay in a fasted state for 2 more hours. And week 4 is this is what I do constantly. And I know, Carol Jean, you heard me talk about this in the past. Week 4 is a little bit more aggressive, where you're going to be doing 3 days a week. You're going to do 16-8 with 3 meals. That would be, say, maintenance or a little bit below maintenance. And the other 3 days, 18-6, in a calorie deficit. So on the days where I'm lifting my weights, doing resistance training, I'm doing 3 meals a day, making sure I'm getting good quality protein, all that. Then on 18-6, only 2 meals a day, definitely in a calorie deficit. And then week 5 on the bottom, that's when we're going to start focusing on food quality. And then the long-term picture, I would say for people, is that once you do week 5 for a couple of weeks, say you're 6 weeks into it, I probably personally, you've been losing weight for 6 weeks, you clean up your diet, I personally would take a diet break and bring your calories up to maintenance for a week or so. You know, maybe stop fasting, or maybe just stay with like a real simple 16-8 for a week and just do 3 meals a day and make sure you're at maintenance. Because I think long-term weight loss is so important. That's why bodybuilders and physique athletes do so well, is that they get motivated, they stay in a calorie restricted state, they, for a certain amount of time, say for a contest, and then when the contest is over, they up their calories, gain a few pounds, and stay in maintenance mode for a while, and then go back into it. You can't constantly be restricting calories like for the rest of your life. Just think you'll be eating nothing. Your metabolism's going to slow down. You got to cycle your calories. So I like to say every 6 weeks or so, I like to take a break, and I think it's a good thing. So if you did week 1, 2, 3, 4, and then week 5 and 6, the next week take a week off. Eat 3 meals a day, up your calories. You can stay with whatever circadian rhythm you're into. Let's see. I think William's got another thing here. Okay. I heard Dave saying I heard Dave Sinclair saying that fasting for 1 day a week is a good idea if you're on keto to diminish the bad effects of mTOR. I think that's a good thing. I mean, actually, truthfully, if you aren't, if a lot of it has to do, like, okay, mTOR, people don't know what mTOR is. It's just like growth signaling, like you're always growing. Some people are really concerned, especially like vegetarians like to say that they're concerned about eating protein. If you're constantly like spiking mTOR, you're always in growth mode. See, mTOR not only feeds good things like growth, it also can feed bad things. Like if you have cancer, if you have like cancer cells, if you're constantly growing, it can be overdone, it could lead to something bad. So William is saying that David Sinclair said that by fasting for 24 hours 1 day, which 1 day a week, which I do think is a wonderful thing to do. Obviously, you're going to be in that repair mode. The opposite of mTOR would be like AMPK, would be like to be in that fasted state, would be autophagy. So doing that 1 day a week is a good thing, and I do think it's a wonderful thing. But the interesting thing about mTOR is that you have to cycle in and out, just like you're cycling from a fasted to a fed state. mTOR could be very good. Like I like mTOR because I want to build muscle at times. I want to be in a growth phase, right? But I also like the fasting because I want to be in a repair phase. So it's somewhat of a delicate balance of doing it. But the correlation between keto and mTOR, see, keto is somewhat, could be real, like it depends how you're doing keto. Say, well, I do go in ketosis from time to time, but I still always keep my protein a little bit on the higher side. If you're doing like traditional keto, where you're eating like 80% fat and you're taking in only like maybe 10% protein and almost no carbs, your mTOR is going to be pretty low all the time because you're not spiking with that protein. You're not activating the mTOR as much. But if you're doing more like my low carb, and I do dip into, if I do a 20-hour fast, I'm going to be in mild ketosis because I eat such a low carb diet generally all the time. I mean, like that 50 to 100 grams of carbs a day is kind of my sweet spot. So I can dip into ketosis kind of easily. So, that has a big effect on mTOR too. It's kind of complex mTOR, but you want to cycle in, cycle out. You want to build and repair, in my opinion. Let's see. Oh, wait, I think the same age. Carol Jean, yeah, I'm 59. I'm going to be 60. I can't believe you're 59 too. You look great in the picture, I'm sure. I know you own a gym and everything, so I'm sure you and your whole family are in great shape, which is great. Let's see. Ooh, 45. Oh, that's great. This is my niche here. Like, this is what I like, people all around the same age. I think most of the people who follow me are like in their 40s, 50s, 60s, like that, which is great. I used to have on top of the website top of the YouTube channel, I specialize in over like 45 or something, but I kind of got rid of that because I don't want to discourage anyone else. I think people of all ages, even your 20s and 30s, can benefit from everything I'm talking about for sure. Okay. I get busy and don't eat enough. I get sick of eating. I get sick of eating now. I know. It's that's why it's funny because people talk about, my case a little bit. It said, Mike, you're always so concerned about people not eating enough calories. And I think this fasting stuff is wonderful, but you can take it too far, and you do have to make sure you're eating enough. And it's a good thing to cycle your calories, and for sure. I don't want and obviously, if you've ever had any eating disorders like bulimia or you don't want to do this. If you're malnourished, you don't want to do this. And I also like to make sure people are taking in. I find, like I always talk about potassium, magnesium. You want to get enough of that. You want to get an adequate amount of protein, especially when you're eating low carb. That's the amazing thing about a low carb diet. You're just not hungry. When you're keeping insulin levels low, when you're not constantly spiking blood sugar, when you're only eating 2 meals a day, you're just not hungry. When you're restricting calories, though, and eating a high carb type diet, like a traditional, you're going to be starving. Like I did both. All of my 20s when I was really into bodybuilding, and even my 30s, I actually kept my body fat low. I looked good. I felt good. I was eating a high carb diet, a low fat diet, and I always kept my protein on the high side. And I was hungry all the time. Now that I switched over to more of that low carb, higher fat, adequate amount of protein diet, my blood work is better. My HDLs are higher. My LDLs are actually lower. My triglycerides are much lower. My LDLs, I should say that. My LDLs are about the same. My triglycerides are much lower. My HDLs are higher. And I can keep my body fat at low levels, and I'm never hungry. So you can easily fall into that rut of not eating enough, for sure. And I find women more so than even men, for sure. So I understand, Collagen. Let's see. Yeah, my birthday's in August too. Cool. That's great. I have to have a day where I eat. I think that's good too. Why not? You have to. I totally agree. I don't really do it every week, but I definitely do that. I was doing it over the holidays a little too much. You have to get it out of your system. You have to find what works for you. No doubt about it. Absolutely. Okay. If you eat a carnivore diet, do you need to take some electrolyte supplements like magnesium? Really interesting. I personally think yes, you do. You do. First of all, you definitely want a good amount of sodium for sure. That real mint salt, no doubt about it. It's interesting because I just was watching Dr. 𝘾𝙃𝘃 because he's a carnivore, right? We just talked about him, and someone asked the question, how do you get enough potassium, magnesium on a diet like that? And I was interested to hear his response. First of all, he said, he didn't think you need as much potassium, magnesium as you might think, especially if you're eating carnivore. He thinks you'll get enough, through your diet, which is, hey, it's so confusing, this stuff, to some degree. Like I also follow Paul Saladino. I read his book, that Carnivore. What do you call it? The Carnivore Code. Great book. He's been on Carnivore for years. There's that other he was a surgeon. What was his name? Ken Baker, I think. I read his book years ago. These guys are just eating like only meat for years, and they seem to be fine. And but I know Paul Saladino started supplementing his diet with a little bit of honey and some fruit, and you're going to get some potassium and stuff in those fruits. It's really hard to say. Maybe that adequate intake of potassium, 4,700, is maybe you don't need that much. I have found, though, that just from my own personal experience and working with people, that people get tired, their blood work's not quite as good when they're not getting that potassium and magnesium, especially if you're exercising and you're sweating. You definitely want to keep the sodium up. I don't think you have to go excess of sodium, but I like drinking Pellegrino mineral water. Every liter of Pellegrino has 50 milligrams of magnesium in it, just from the minerals in the water. I like drinking, sometimes I will throw a pinch of salt. I don't excessively salt my food, but I do put salt on my food. I'm not looking to go low sodium. What does the average American eat? Like 3,500 milligrams of sodium a day, which might be too much because they're eating so much processed food. But if you're eating a whole natural food diet, you should salt your food, especially if you're doing that. Carnivore thing is interesting. I've done it. I experimented a little bit with carnivore. I couldn't quite pull the trigger. Like I did things where I would just I did like somewhat of a, Paul Saladino would call it like level 1 carnivore, where I was eating mostly meat, like chicken, fish, meat, eggs. And then I still had a little bit of, I wanted fiber. That's the other big thing. See, I would have an avocado every day, you know, and things like that along with it. Because the interesting thing is that when most people go carnivore, they get like, you know, diarrhea like within a week or two. Joe Rogan talked about that when he went carnivore, which you would think the opposite, right? No fiber, you know, and then eventually your stomach adjusts to it. Carnivore people say you don't really need the fiber, anti-nutrient, right? Stops you from digesting vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. All you need is the meat. The other big thing people say who criticize carnivores, that how to get your vitamin C. And Paul Saladino will say, and even Dr. Ken Berry say, no, if you're eating organ meats, like you're eating livers high in vitamin C. So if you're doing the carnivore thing and really doing carnivore, you probably should eat organ meats. You should eat liver and all the different things to make sure you're getting everything. But in my opinion, I still think we've evolved to eat some vegetables, you know, and I do think some fiber is good for you too. So I definitely think that's why I'm always leaning more towards low carb. You know, like 50 grams of carbs a day is still pretty low in the form of vegetables, and eating good quality animal protein. I go to 100 grams all the time a day too. And every now and then I may try carnivore straight up for a month once. I haven't done it yet, but I might. I'm curious to know your experience with it, William, and how you think. So William, you're 46. Oh, cool. That's great. Okay. All right, good. Any other questions, guys? This is great. I always like to go an hour, so I'm over an hour, 2 minutes. Anything else? Let me see what I have here. This is just the Q&A. The Q&A things. This is great. And how is this time? Sunday morning to around 11. I was almost going to do 10. I was thinking about maybe doing it every other week. I know, it's interesting. I've been, you know what I've been, let's see what we've got. Okay. I've been trying to do keto, and I only managed to do breakfast and lunch, so 2 meals a day. I have to eat with the family. I can cut dessert and drinks. Okay, I'm trying to do keto, and I only managed to do breakfast and lunch for it. That's good. And then I understand what you're saying. So you're doing keto for breakfast and lunch. So you're eating like very low carb breakfast and lunch. But then with the family, with dinner, you're taking in some carbs and some drinks. So that's probably fun. You know, you're probably doing then. You're probably eating more like me. You're probably just automatically eating like just a low carb type diet. So in the morning, right, if you're doing keto, you're not spiking lunch, you're not spiking insulin. So, you know, some people would say a ketogenic diet, it's mimicking fasting, because when you're eating fat's really not going to spike insulin much. If you're taking a little protein, you might be spiking insulin a little bit. But I think that's a pretty good strategy. I don't think that's bad at all to eat very low carb during the day, and then in the evening you're having like your normal meal. It's interesting. Another great book is Why We Get Sick. Ben Bikman. I'm sorry, I pronounced the name. Ben Bikman. He talks about, and I actually found a study and I did a video on it. He talks about that when you do take in carbs, like so let's say, William, you're doing your normal meal at dinner with the wife and kids or whatever, and you're taking in some carbohydrates, even some desserts. Some studies have shown that if you can take in those carbs like 45 minutes after your protein and like your high fiber like vegetables, you're gonna have a more better blood glucose response. It's almost like taking like apple cider vinegar, like taking a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar or Burberry before a meal works like metformin, like helps control blood sugar. So if you can eat your normal dinner, which is relatively healthy, say you're having some salmon or a piece of steak and some vegetables, but then wait 45 minutes and then have your dessert or have your cocktail, have your drink, you might be better off. Kind of interesting. I wasn't aware of that then, and then he talked about it in his book, and I actually found the study. If you want, I'll find the study and post it if you want to check it out. It's kind of interesting. Chuck, good time, Chuck. Oh, that's good. I like this time to 11 o'clock. It's like people get to wake up a little bit. I'm on the East Coast, though. California's really early. Or I know people in Europe, it's a good time, like kind of in the afternoon. Let's see what Carol Jean says. Okay. When I say eating whatever I want, I don't mean McDonald's or brownies. I like a baked potato, a little bit of pie. You know, I'm totally with you, Kelly. I'm the same thing too. When I say I eat bad, I'm not eating. You know, I'm not eating McDonald's, or I'm not eating like a grilled cheese sandwich. You know, I'm doing exactly what you're talking about. I'm having a sweet potato. You know, maybe I will have some pasta. The only thing with pasta, if I have pasta once, it's like a trigger food for me. I want to eat it every single night. So most of the time, I won't even have pasta. But that's almost exactly what I do. I would do sweet potatoes, which I like. I can have a sweet potato just one night and not necessarily crave it the next night. I'll do things like that. Or maybe, I won't even eat pizza or things like that. To me, I do the same thing, Carol Jean. I just increase the volume of my food. Another thing I can't eat is potato chips. I love potato chips. Don't keep them in the house. Now, I'm a big believer in making a list of all your trigger foods. Like, trigger foods are foods that you have them once. and then you wake up in the middle of the night dreaming about them. You say, I'm dying for that food. And for me, things like potato chips are one of them, like pizza, you know, another one, pasta. I mean, I just really rarely eat them. You know, there's some foods you have to say to yourself and say, you know what, you're just not going to eat. Like pancakes was that with me when I was younger. I used to love pancakes. I don't even have pancakes on my birthday. I just can't. It'll kill you. Let's see. Yep. One thing I do is to have a big salad and just put whatever I want on it. So it's still mostly veggies, but if I want pasta or croutons or dessert, you know, I think it's a great thing to do. That's great. Yeah, I know. You have to know your trigger foods. You have to live a normal life, right? But that's what I think is so cool about intermittent fasting, that even if, you know, I do obviously want everyone to improve the quality of their food diet. I always say 3 ways to lose weight, right? Food timing, intermittent fasting, food quality, and calories. Intermittent fasting, even if you don't change your diet, is going to improve the quality. I think the quality of your health, in my opinion, just by shortening your eating window for sure. Even if you don't want to change the food you're eating. Okay, let's see what William's got to say. Okay, I think doing your live every Sunday at 11 is a good time if you can. Oh, that sounds great, William. Cool. I appreciate you showing up. That's great. I like this. If I don't do it every Sunday, I'll do it every other Sunday. But I might do it every Sunday. I just don't want to be monotonous with people. You know, like, oh, this guy every Sunday talking about intermittent fasting. But I'm also trying to broaden out the channel a little bit. Unfortunately, they didn't do well. Like my last video I did on blood flow restriction training on the YouTube channel, which I love. I love blood flow restriction training. You know, where you partially occlude the limbs. You know, you get an incredible pump. You can use like baby weight soup. I can take a 10-pound dumbbell, put those bands on my arm, and just get an incredible pump. But the video kind of bombed. I mean, no one really watched it. I did another one, the one before, like on mobility movement. I'm a big believer in mobility movement, like to lubricate the joints and to proprioceptively, like people call it remapping, like your central nervous system to eliminate pain and injury. No one really watched that one either. I don't know. We'll see. I'm definitely going to stay with the intermittent fasting. I'm going to try to sneak in more fitness and workout type videos because I want my channel still to be, you know, like a healthy lifestyle, fitness, health channel, not just a channel on intermittent fasting. Plus, with intermittent fasting, I'm always competing with like doctors like, you know, Peter Attia and Dr. Ken Berry and Dr. Edbert Stein. You know, they always say, I'm always competing when it comes to the fitness. You know, I've been doing it for like 40 years. I feel like I can, match up with anyone on that. Okay, one idea would be to follow up with people who do this 4-week program and see where everyone is. Oh, I think it's a great idea. That sounds good. So that sounds great. So in a couple of weeks, we can do it like a tune-up, and we'll see like how do you do that. You know what? I would love that. Also, underneath this video, leave me some comments on how you're doing along the way, for sure. And I've done other ones like this too. I've done maybe 3 or 4 live streams where I mapped out like a whole 4-week plan. And I even have that course, which is not that you need the course. I have a 4-week course, which pretty much is what I did right here, but in much, much more detail. It's like 40 videos. Every video is 2 to 5 minutes long. And I explain the science. I go into great detail. I pretty much mapped out very similar to what we did here, really similar. Yeah, I know, good pizzas. Yeah, I love that, like that thin Napolitano type pizza. There's a place in, New York, but it's really West. It's called Mount Vernon. Johnny's Pizza. It's like 3rd generation. It is the best pizza I've ever had in my life. It's like that oven, the brick oven type pizza. They use a normal oven, but they had that thin paper. It's incredible, the pizza. Just thinking about it makes me want to go get it. So I so rarely will go, because if I have it once, I want it I literally want it every single day. Oh, you made an amazing keto pizza. Ooh, that's really cool. I would like to know how you did that. That would be great. Excellent. I guess you use different type of flour. You use like almond flour or something like that. That's great. Let's see what Williams got here. Okay. Let's see what Williams got. Another question. Okay. The other day I was told that fish oil in omega-3 supplement is rancid. It really depends. You know the brand I like? I like Carlson's, and I do take it. I take it intermittently because I eat so much fish. Like I take, I'm eating sardines and smoked salmon. I eat salmon like almost every single day, and we eat mackerel, and my wife makes fish almost every day. So on the days when I'm like, if I have sardines for lunch and then I have salmon for dinner, I won't take a fish oil supplement. But I do take Carlson's. I take the lemon one. Every teaspoon is like 40 calories, 1,600 milligrams of omega-3. Some people say, I don't know if this is true, that if you take your fish oil supplement and you put it in the refrigerator, and if it doesn't get smoky, that means it's really pure. I think Carlson's, I've read some like third-party testing of it. They're from Norway, the Carlson's. I think it's literally only, I think they've come from anchovies, they come from sardines and mackerel, so low on the food chain. I'm more concerned about the metal, like the metal content in them. So it's very hard to find the capsules. Carlson's makes the capsules. There's that other brand too. I forget the other brand. I'll list it below this video. There's another brand that I think gets really good ratings too. But yes, you do have to be careful about that, William, a little bit. I can't say that I'm an expert. It's always so. It's so so many times over the years, and I just did a consult with someone. I've been wanting to start like a supplement company. I've looked into it so many times, and the deeper and deeper I dive into it, it is so hard to make sure that you're getting what you think you're getting. Meaning that, like, you come out with a supplement, like even fish oil, like it has to be tested. Every batch has to be tested. And I may do it. I'm really thinking about starting like a protein powder company, like Vital Proteins, and maybe my first supplement be like a collagen protein. But there's, you really have to like third-party test it and make sure that it's clean and there's nothing in it. So with the fish oil, there's one website called labdoor.com. And that's I like that website. Sometimes I look up supplements there, and they third-party test the supplements, and they give you different ratings. Check out, if you're taking a particular fish oil supplement, go to LabDoor, see if it's listed there, see if they have a rating on it. Even Consumer Reports will even do that too, but you have to pay for Consumer Reports, and they go through that's why they did a great one on collagen protein powder. And the Vital Proteins and the Great Lakes turn that really, really high, low on all the metals. A lot of companies now, because this is getting, everyone's getting savvy on this, they'll literally will give you the third party, report on the particular batch of supplements with a number saying, okay, this supplement is clean of all these things. But so many of these supplements that once you test them, like once the third-party testing, not that they're necessarily dangerous, but the amounts they say are supposed to be in these supplements are not even close. Like, you look at vitamin D and say D3 is supposed to be like 200% the daily allowance. They test that vitamin D and there's like 10%, or they test the vitamin C, or maybe there's too much of one, not enough of another. It's really tricky, and it seems like there aren't that many companies who are making these supplements. Like, everyone's, like, for example, like GNC, they don't even make their own supplements. They buy them from like a manufacturer. They just like private label them. So many of people's supplements are private labeled, and they're coming from like 5 companies. Like, most of all the whey protein is coming from like one big company. The best whey protein comes from New Zealand because it's mostly grass-fed, grass-finished, and comes from Ireland. Like, there's a couple in California. 'Cause I did a lot of research. There's a couple of places in California. See, it's very difficult. Even when something says grass-fed, grass-finished, it depends on what country you're in, on the rules and regulation. Like, even in New Zealand, they can grass-fed, grass-finish their cows. I don't know what it is. I'm going to make it up. I say 80% of the time and put that on their label. Where in the U.S., you may, it's different. It's almost like, when it's so confusing, eggs nowadays. You look at eggs, say free range, right? When it says free range on eggs, I think there are rules where it says all the farmer has to do, or the hen, I don't know what you would call someone who raises chickens, has to open the barn doors, and the chickens have an option to go outside. There's so many different rules. That's why they say pasture raised, pasture finished. That means that the hens, the chickens are really roaming around, which is really good. And it gets really confusing. Okay. Yeah, nutrition is so complex. For years I've been told to take vitamin D, and now they're saying that it can be effective to take. Yeah, I know you got to take K2 of vitamin D, helps absorb it. Now that's what they're saying. I think that's still the best sunlight, no doubt about it. Sunlight even increases the nitric oxide in your body, which helps control blood pressure, without a doubt. I know it gets so confusing, the supplements, but I do take, I take a multivitamin every day, and I take three different brands. I take Alive for men over 50, which is, part synthetic, part whole food. Then I take New Chapter, whole food, which is like a low postage, just whole food vitamin. Then I take Thorn, basic 2 a day. And I try to protect myself, because I just go through one bottle, like I just finished the bottle of Alive. Now I switched over to my New Chapter, which is just whole foods. And I do like Green Vibrance. I do that. That's that green powder. I know Cara Jean was talking about, she takes a different green powder, which is like taking, all that is real food. See, I like the supplements that are real food. That's why if I started a supplement company, I just want to do protein powder. Like, it's just real food, like hemp seed powder. All it is hemp seed, right? That's a great complete protein. Collagen, it's just like bovine is from the hides of cows. Whey protein isolated, is just dairy. You know, when you get into those other supplements, it gets a little, obviously it gets a little bit more complicated. Okay. I think is recommended because it's high DHA. That sounds good. You know, I was taking cod liver oil at 1.2. Same thing. I find cod liver oil though that kind of repeated on me a little bit. Whereas that caution fish oil, which is more the sardines, the avocados, and the mackerel, didn't bother me at all. But avocado oil bothered me a little bit. You know, I didn't like the taste of it as much as well too. I like that caution, like I said, I buy the lemon or orange flavor fish oil. I have no issues with it at all. Yeah, the United States has gotten to change the way they regulate. I know it's so true. The whole food industry, you know, it's really difficult out there. And supplements, I know some people feel you don't need them. I do like that argument though a little bit that the soil in the U.S. has been so depleted of vitamin, you know, depleted of minerals that I think, especially if you're really active, I think a multivitamin is probably a good thing, or some type of like plant-based superfood like that Green Vibrance. Like Green Vibrance, when you do a package of that, it's pretty much like taking a whole natural food multivitamin, you know, right there. You get everything. If you look at the back of it, every single vitamin, mineral is really there, and all it is dehydrated food. But then again, you worry, right? And you know, like, who knows? They say they're third-party tested. You just hope you're getting exactly what they're saying, right? Like the big thing. And I know the other popular one, I know 𝘾𝙊𝙏𝙃 has one she likes, but I think I'm gonna try it. I've been dying to order it, Athletic Greens. But the only difference between like Athletic Greens and Green Vibrance is Athletic Greens has their own proprietary like blend, meaning that they don't tell you exactly how much is in every single ingredient, whereas Green Vibrance lists exactly what's in every ingredient. The only thing with Green Vibrance do is sometimes there are things in it that I don't necessarily want. Like I heard, like wheatgrass is very confusing. Wheatgrass, a lot of people feel you don't even digest wheatgrass. You're not a cow, right? But they put that in Green Vibrance. A lot of people say, like, ginseng doesn't do anything. Yet there's ginseng in like Green Vibrance. But who knows? There's so many other great things in there too. But I think taking a whole natural food, if you want to be totally safe, but they are expensive, I would go. Those new chapters are great. New chapter for men, new chapter for women, because all it is you know, dehydrated fruits and vegetables. And if you look in the back of the bottle, it's pretty low potency. It's like 100% of vitamin C, 100% of vitamin D with the K2 and all that. It's not like, where's the Alive, those ones I take, you go in the back of Alive, you look at that vitamin B12, 10,000 the daily amounts. But that's a water soluble vitamin, so that's why you pee like, you urinate like deep yellow when you're taking those high potency multivitamins. But I like taking a lot of B vitamins. I find it relaxes me. That's why I like to make, like we were talking about earlier, Spaz, we were saying about the magnesium. I think taking a little magnesium citrate is probably a good thing. Good thing, helps you sleep at night and just make sure you're getting enough. So that's cool. All right, guys, thanks for showing up. We still got a bunch of people. Any other questions? Any other fitness workout questions you have or anything? Actually, today's, I don't know, this is my third cup of coffee today. I generally only drink 2. I don't know why. I know why a little more cold. Maybe it's just a cold. I typically walk out there, I say, but I'm telling you, I'm looking at my phone. I think it is like 6 degrees in New York. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I need to try your green powder. I know that's the only, all these green powders. Athletic Greens is the most expensive. That's like $80, $90 a month. Green Vibrance, I think, is about half that, but it still is expensive. But I think it's the type of thing where, you know, you don't have to do it every day. You know, you can do it once every 3 days and see how that goes, and then it won't be anywhere near as expensive. You can do half a scoop, but I like the 2 rock stars that I always talk about, like Peter Attia, that Harvard doctor, who has the podcast called The Drive, and also what's his name? Huberman, Andrew. How do we pronounce his name? Huberman, I think. Huberman Labs, that podcast, which I love. They both take green Athletic Greens every single day, like twice a day. I know these guys make a lot of money, though, I'm sure, too, but they love it. I don't know. I do think I get a little bit of an energy boost from that Green Vibrance. It's only 40 calories per pound, so sometimes I don't really consider it a meal. This is what interesting. This is almost like when people, I think, do kind of mess up a little bit when they think they're doing 16-8. Like they're doing 16-8, and then, but at 10 o'clock they say, "Oh, I'm going to do a Green Vibrance," which it's no big deal. But you didn't really fast the 8 hours if you're doing things like that out of your eating window. So try to do it within your eating window if you can. Let's see what Williams got here. Mike, have you ever heard of this innovator? The futurist called 𝙒𝘾𝙏𝑗, who who takes 150 capsules. No, I never heard of him. I'll check him out though. She said that. But you know what I did here, which is really interesting? You know, I'm a big fan. I don't know if you can see his picture. This is, let me move the mic. You can check him out. You know, my favorite bodybuilder of all time is, there he is right there. It's Frank Zane. I don't know if you can, he just got clear. He's an incredible, he was my favorite bodybuilder. And I know Frank Zane, if I change the camera angle, you may be able to see the picture better. There he is back there. He looked his best. I mean, he's incredible. I mean, I followed him over the years. At one point, he was doing that, like in the peak of his career. And I bought his supplements years ago because he has his own kind of like really expensive though. He was taking like 150 capsules, something like 2 or 3 times a day. I heard him on an interview on 𝙒𝘼𝙏𝙏𝘾𝙃, which is a guy who has a podcast, like pretty much kind of based a little bit more on the fitness industry. He has a company with all functional equipment. I forget his name. Seems like a cool guy. He's from the UK. And he interviewed Frank Zane. I listen to any interview that Frank Zane does. He's in his late 70s now. And he talked about he was doing that. He was, no exaggeration, he was taking something like 150 capsules multiple times a day. He said he would only eat sometimes to take the capsules. He was a big believer in like those amino acids, like constantly taking in protein without any calories. And I talked about this before. I do take those essential aminos from time to time, and that's a little debatable on whether it's breaking your fast or not, because you're pretty much getting protein, all the essential aminos, those 9 essential amino acids. They're relatively no calories, and sometimes I do that as a protein hack because, like I talked about in the past, all the new research is saying that you do want to take in protein earlier in the day. So if I'm doing like a longer time restricted eating protocol, well, say for 5-6 weeks, I really am not eating until 1-2 o'clock, I might sometimes take essential aminos. I've taken Ben Greenfeld's Keto brand. I like his brand. It's funny, another company just contacted me. They want me to do a video about their brand, but I haven't tried their brand yet, so I can't do it until I actually try it. But and some people say, oh, that is breaking your fast because it's amino acid, you're getting an insulin spike. But there's like there's no calories on the label, so it's hard to say. The only negative thing about those essential aminos is I can't figure out on a milligram basis. Like when I do a scoop of like 2 scoops of whey protein, I say, you look at the amino acid profile, high in leucine, which is great for muscle, and you see, okay, it's 100 calories, 25 grams of protein. When you break down the essential aminos and just how much protein, it's hard to gauge. I just do what they recommend on the label, which is like 1 serving, like a scoop or 2. But are those essential amino acids equal to taking 2 scoops of whey protein powder? Everything is the proprietary blend, so you can't say they're not listing the exact amount of leucine or tryptophan, you know what I mean? So it's hard for me to figure that out. I've even called the company. I'm waiting for a call back from one of the companies, so I like to ask them that. Like 2 scoops of your essential aminos, is that the same amount of protein of the essential aminos of they saying to taking 2 scoops of a typical whey protein isolate or a typical hemp seed protein? I haven't got a response from them yet though, which can be kind of interesting. Okay, I haven't worked out for a while. How do you recommend getting started? Yeah, I would just you gotta just get started. I think this couple of things you have to do, I think, all the time. You have to walk. I walk every single day. It's interesting. I may not walk today because it is like 5 degrees, and I walk along the Hudson River in New York, and it's crazy windy. I already checked this morning. It's like 15 degrees. 15 mile an hour winds. It'll be like 20 below. But typically I walk every single day. There were some days when I just walk, which would be Sunday. I typically would walk 2 hours today. But even the days when I'm doing my resistance training, 4 o'clock almost every single day I take a walk. May just be 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. The singular best thing you can do for your health, besides eating good, is walking every single day. Walking 10 minutes after every meal helps control blood sugar just as well as taking metformin, which is unbelievable. Exercise is so much more powerful than so many different medications for controlling diabetes and blood pressure and things like that. Walking, I would say definitely start walking. I love walking fasted first thing in the morning too. It's an amazing thing to do. And then you have to do some type of resistance training. So walk every day, number 1. Number 2, some type of resistance training. And I'm not talking maybe like what I would do or maybe what Carol Jean would do because she owns a gym and her whole family are really into working out. I go to, 10 minutes of resistance training, every other day. Literally like body weight squats, something like lunges, push-ups. I have some videos on all these things if you want to check them out. I have a beginner push-up program, push-ups. You can buy those Spree resistance bands that you close them in the door. You spend 10 minutes doing the simplest, 10-15 minutes doing the simplest resistance training workout 3 days a week to maintain and even increase your muscle mass. That's all you really have to do, at least to start. And like I said, just whatever you commit to do, just make it so easy. Just say you're going to walk 20 minutes every day, and then you're going to spend 10 minutes doing some type of resistance training. Squats, lunges, push-ups, planks. And maybe buy those resistance bands. You buy them on Amazon for $10-15. You can do anything with it. You know, I think I would get started that way, so that's for sure. Yeah. My brother-in-law is named Zane. We call him Zane. Yeah, I love Frank Zane. That's really funny. I wonder if he's a bodybuilder too. That's funny. Let's see. Okay. All the gyms are closed. Oh, you're in Montreal. Cool. I love Montreal. I went to old Montreal a couple of times. I love old Montreal. Since do you think home calisthenics? I say, no, of course. No doubt about it. Home calisthenics, absolutely. I think you said, William, you're 45. You can get so much done with calisthenics. And fun, you should fool around. Check out the blood flow restriction. Watch that video I did. You can buy these blood flow restriction bands. They're like $20. And what they do is that they restrict blood flow. It's like metabolic adaptation, metabolic stress. You can put these bands, William, on your upper thighs. I guarantee you do like 20, 25 slow squats. Your legs are going to get so pumped up. You do lunges. You grab a pair of you buy those resistance bands, you put them on their arms, you do some curls, you do calisthenics with these bands on, you're going to get such a response. Metabolic stress, metabolites build up. See, that blood flow restriction training, like blood goes into the muscle, but that venous blood return is minimized. So like metabolites build up, lactate builds up, hydrogen builds up, you're going to get an incredible burn. It's great. I think you can do really well. I know Montreal must be crazy cold, but it's funny. I went to old Montreal. I'm talking 35, 40 years ago. I'll never forget it. We were in old Montreal. We were having dinner in this restaurant, and this sailor shows up in his sailor outfit with his young wife. He looked like he was 12 years old. He must have been like 19. And they had a wedding right in the restaurant in old Montreal. I'll never forget. I absolutely loved it. I remember buying drinks for everyone at the table. There was only maybe 12 of them. They were so young. And he must have been like on leave. He must have had like a couple of days off. And I really like Montreal with the cobblestone. I don't know. I know Montreal in general, but I've had a lot of fun in Canada. I've been there multiple times. I really love it. Okay. That's great, William. Yeah, definitely. I would definitely do calisthenics. But look into that blood flow restriction training. I think it's great for amazing home workouts. And, also chin up bar, the basic thing like that. It's always a nice thing to have in the house. They're so cheap. You can do so many things with them. You can train the abs. You do your pull-ups. But with the resistance bands though, you need a place to anchor. So when you buy those free bands too, if you want to buy some of those bands, which that's another great thing to have in the house, make sure you get the anchor. It's like $1 more, so you can close it in the door. And don't close it on the door, on the side of the door that opens, because the door can open and hit you in the chest. Close it on the inside of the hinge, so you really know the door's locked. Because I've known people have gotten hurt otherwise. Okay, blood flow restriction training. I've never heard of that. Oh, definitely. I'm sure he's familiar with it. I'm sure he is. I did a couple of videos on my site on it. There's tons of videos on it. Really, really cool. Actually, I have a more sophisticated system. Of course, the 𝘾𝙬 system. It started in China. A guy invented it, and they've done tons of research in China, even with hospitals on it. It really restricts blood flow. It's not like the interesting thing about blood flow restriction training is that it's great for like rehab, because you can have like post-op, you can have someone who's really, really lightweight and get a great response. You don't really get the muscle damage because you're lifting such light weight, and you don't get that muscle overload. It's really metabolic stress. It's like pumping the muscle up. I'm sure your husband's familiar with it. It's really, really cool. I actually love it. I talk about it all the time. I had this knee operation about 15 years ago. I had a horrible result. My knee, I was squatting 405 pounds, when I was 44. And now, it was a disaster, the operation. My knees always bothered me. So a lot of my leg training, I do with blood flow restriction training, because I can use like really lightweight. I can go into leg extension with like next to no weight, pump up my quads, or I can do some body weight squats and lunges, or maybe just I'll hold, like light, like 40, 50 pound dumbbells, and maybe do some body weight squats, like a deadlift kind of squat with the blood flow restriction bands on, so I can train my legs pretty good with really lightweight and kind of protect my knee a little bit. One day I'll have another knee operation. I've just been putting it off somewhat for a long time. I'm not excited to go do it again. All right. So I think I'm gonna run. I've been doing this an hour and a half, but I really enjoyed this one. Let me see. We'll get another question here. Okay, I tried planks. How long do I have to hold the position to also do stuff? But it's hard to say. I think anywhere 30 to 60 seconds. I like rolling planks. I even have some videos on it where you start with a front plank and then you just roll from side to side, roll front and back. I got that from 𝙒𝘼𝙏𝘾𝙃. We talked about him in the past. He's that doctor who's not a doctor. I think he's a PhD professor who specializes in back pain. I read all his textbooks. I love rolling planks. There's so many ways to make a plank harder or easy. It really depends on how you do your positioning. Another trick that makes a plank so much harder is just slightly pull your elbows to your toes and kind of like making a good abdominal contraction. So many ways to make it a little bit harder. And you want to breathe, diaphragmatic breathing when you're planking. I like rolling planks a lot. I do. I like any non